In what could be the last game played in St. Louis, the Rams beat the Bucs last night on Thursday Night Football. However, Jeff Fisher's squad is now only 6-8 this season and only 26-35-1 during his tenure as Rams head coach. Our Adam Schefter reported yesterday that the Rams have zero plans to fire Jeff Fisher after the season and would like him to return for 2016. Fisher's under contract through next season. Skip, how much is Fisher to blame for the Rams record?
Stephen A. to me, far more than he's getting blamed, apparently, at this point in a 6-8 season on a team that I think has far more talent than its 6-8 record. May I take a quick aside, a quick right turn to say that I did watch this game, trying to watch the basketball and the football game at the same time. Yep. Jameis Winston showed me heart and guts last night. He was under fire the whole game, mostly from Aaron Donald. He took a lot of physical abuse, some emotional abuse, and he just kept bouncing up and firing another pass. They wind up with over 500 yards offense, and they crept back into the game late. I just like the way he competed last night, so way to go, Jameis. Now back to Jeff Fisher. You know, I'm not the biggest Jeff Fisher fan and haven't been for all the way back to his Vince Young days. And I will give Jeff this. Obviously, they've suffered their share of injuries. Robert Quinn, Chris Long, Janoris Jenkins, Ogletree. And obviously, he made a quarterback change and went with a Nick Foles, who's been mostly a disaster. Had a couple of good games, and they had a couple of flashes where you said, wow, that home opener, they beat Seattle, and then they went to Arizona and won. Impressive. That's the team that I picked to be a wild card team, and obviously they're not going to be a wild card team. I look at the good in this team. I look at how it performed last night. I look at Tavon Austin and the emergence, why I picked him to be a wild card team, obviously of a Todd Gurley, who's just a flat-out stud. Didn't have a huge game last night, but had a couple of stud runs. And I say, wow, with Trey Mason and Jared Cook, they've added Kenny Britt, there's just so much firepower there. It's such an impressive roster that they just should be better than 6-8. They had a 5-game losing streak. They got blown out at home by Jay Cutler and company. That's just not right. Something's very wrong here. And to me, somebody should take a harder look at a Jeff Fisher who's been a media favorite for a long time. I know a lot of the national writers and analysts really like him, and that's fine with me. But in the end, if you look hard and objectively at what happened this year, even with Nick Foles, even having to go to Case Keenum, this team is better than 6-8 in my humble estimation.
Well, Skip Bayless, I get what you're saying about the likability factor, and I truly respect the fact that it's fine with you. It's not fine with me, in all seriousness, and I hate to make people uncomfortable, but somebody has to do it. Last week, I brought up the fact that if you look at Jason Garrett's record in Dallas and the years of mediocrity, he was the walking embodiment of why black folks had a problem with the system. Because you see a situation where it is clear that you're the head coach because Jerry Jones loves you. There's no other reason for you to be the head coach. But compared to Jeff Fisher, one would argue Jason Garrett could be mistaken for Bill Cowher or Mike Tomlin or somebody. I mean, because Jeff Fisher's record is just absolutely pathetic. The next time this man has a 500 season, it will only be the 7th time he's done that in 21 seasons as a head coach. This man is en route to his 4th consecutive losing season. This man has been to the postseason, Lord knows how many times. It hasn't been that many. Hasn't been to the postseason since a 13-3 year when he was coaching Tennessee back in 2008. Okay, continues to lose, continues to be below 500, yet and still, this man is being paid $7 million a year, just $500,000 less than a 4-time Super Bowl champion in Bill Belichick, and according to reports, over $2.1 million than the league average for coaches. And then you look at some of these guys and some of these teams that have lost their jobs. How many coaches that have been fired all over the place, in Buffalo and Cleveland, and I mean the list goes on and on. I'm just looking at some of these numbers here, and I'm like, are you kidding me? 4 teams, Chicago, Buffalo, Cleveland, and Tennessee, have dismissed 2 coaches, not 1, 2, in Fisher's tenure in St. Louis. This is what they're saying here. Ken Wisenhunt got fired twice. First by the Cardinals and now by the Titans. But somehow, some way, this man, Jeff Fisher, gets a job. All I can say to you is that I guess this is what America's about. When you sit there and you look at other candidates, and it doesn't have to just be minorities. It's white candidates out there, coordinators on both the offensive and defensive side, craving for an opportunity and can't get one because of the good old boy network or the fact that they haven't ingratiated themselves with the right people or whatever. Don't get me started with black folks looking for opportunities, but I can tell you this, I know of no black person that has this kind of latitude and this kind of leeway, that you can be so inept, so inefficient, so unproductive as it pertains to wins and losses, and still have this level of job security. Not only is he being paid like one of the elite coaches, you've got an owner that's talking about he ain't going nowhere, he's coming back next year. And all because they may be relocating from St. Louis to California, and Jeff Fisher has experience in relocation. That's the argument that you're giving, folks. It is unreal how this stuff happens. It is unreal how flagrantly unfair this is, because it's not consistent with what we're told professional sports is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about results. And certainly you don't want to pull the trigger too quickly. But no one would argue that Jeff Fisher has had plenty of time. He's accumulated some talent. There's no doubt about it. He's made the defense arguably one of the elite ones. The offense has been porous. But in the end, the results are on his watch and that of Les Snead. More so Jeff Fisher to me than Les Snead. And the fact that he doesn't get held accountable for it, I don't know him personally. He seems to be a nice man. I am not attacking him on a personal level in any way. I am simply looking at his record and saying to you, most folks wouldn't get over like this.
Yeah.
And don't get me started with black folks. They wouldn't get over with it at all. But somehow, some way, Jeff Fisher not only gets to keep his job, but get paid lovely. And oh, by the way, an owner who's willing to declare he ain't going nowhere. We're going to stick with him. It's good to be Jeff Fisher. He should give classes on political correctness or whatever it is that he does to keep himself in these advantageous positions, because it is a miracle that he has gotten away with it.
He should give a class on how to ingratiate oneself with the media, because he's the master of that. He's also a powerful member of the competition committee. Don't undersell that on his resume. And
well, I do understand that, and I'm not saying he doesn't belong there. The man knows football.
Sure he does.
I have no problem with him being on a competition committee. I have no problem with folks leaning on him to gain his counsel about different issues, because he's been around a long time. But in the interest of fairness, if you're going to produce those kind of results and he gets to have that level of security, what chances do an abundance of folks out there, black, white, and beyond, have of ultimately getting an opportunity when you're allowed that kind of security with those paltry results?
I agree with every word you just uttered. I am 1,000% with you on your view of this. I don't get it either, and it's an injustice. It's an injustice to black coaches everywhere. Frankly, it makes me sick. And I'm no Jason Garrett guy. I know he did have the 12-4 last year and won a playoff game, so at least he's got that going for him. But in the main, he's a Stepford coach. He's a puppet coach. He's like a son to Jerry, and I don't have a lot of respect for him. But he's going to keep his job, Jason Garrett.
He deserves to keep his job more than Jeff Fisher does.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yep. And it appears Jeff Fisher will too. And apparently if this team potentially goes to LA, we'll travel with them. And
He played at USC. I guess you could sell that.
Yep, that
right?
connection. Moving on, Charles Barkley
By
says...
the way,
Yeah.
keep in mind, Skip, that just about a year ago or so, we were lamenting if Mike Tomlin had missed the playoffs,
Yep.
how he could be in trouble.
Sure.
Do you realize the nerve folks have for bringing up that subject with the security that Jeff Fisher has been allowed to have?
Fair enough.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
We'll
Unbelievable.
leave it there.